We need to do this every day of the week and just really brainwash people into thinking about guns in a vastly different way.
The man that had tree branches duct taped to his body had entered the bank and demanded cash and fled with some money.
Ah! Call the police! We are the police!
But if you touch my junk, I'm gonna have you arrested.
Don't tase me, bro!
You know, whether Ebola was concocted in some laboratory and is some kind of a test run for a much worse thing, I don't know. But the issue of Kaci Hickox is a very interesting one, and one that brought up an issue that I think is being missed. Now, the way that all these big power plays work is that there's always the good side to it. There's always the appealing side to it. There's always the side that you can think about and it makes perfect sense. But then there's the other side of the coin, which you don't really want to look at too much, because there's the good common sense side that makes sense. Okay, so Kaci is the one who was treated for Ebola and was apparently supposed to quarantine herself in her own home. But, you know, she romped around, went out riding her bicycle, and, you know, was just kind of flaunting that she's not going to be sequestered in her own home. And so everyone became a Kaci hater, right? Oh, look at her. Oh, she might infect other people, so we hate her and we're against her and what she's doing is wrong. Yes, and we want what? What is it that we want? We, people who don't trust the government, we who don't want government intervention in our lives on a mass scale, we who love liberty and freedom, we conservatives or libertarians or whatever you are, we want the government to force her to stay sequestered, quarantined in her own home. That's right, we want the government to come in and do that. And so we had virtually our entire population of the United States thinking that way. We want the government to tell an individual citizen who broke no law, committed no crime, has not been charged of any unlawful activity, we want the government to come in and force her to stay in her own home. Think about that. You know, yeah, it would have been slightly different if a SWAT team busted down her door and took her into custody and threw her into some kind of healthcare institution. But think about what we, quote unquote, wanted. This is what we wanted from the government. We were expressing annoyance at the very least, or hatred at the most, or thinking of this woman as being dumb or thoughtless, or whatever terms were used to express our feelings towards her, because basically she had gotten over Ebola and wanted to live her life. But we felt like the government should come in and tell an individual citizen that she could not leave her own private residence. Just think about that. But she could have infected. I know. And there's that other side of the issue, the one that makes sense and is logical and is good and right and all of that. And that's the catch-22 that we're placed in continuously. So let me give you another illustration from pop culture. It seems to me every movie nowadays is basically based on the same premise. You have a quote-unquote good person doing quote-unquote bad things for quote-unquote good reasons. So that, well, it's okay that the good guy is doing absolutely the same exact things as the bad guy is doing, because the good guy who has good reasons for doing bad things. Therefore, the hero is doing the same exact things as the bad guy, but He's a hero because he's heroic. I mean, it's totally arbitrary. But if you start noticing in TV shows and movies, you'll see this continuously. I mean, all the time. And the way they do it is to present a false dichotomy. They'll put a character into a difficult position where they must, or so we are told, choose to do bad for a good reason, right? So here we were, expressing negative thoughts towards Kaci, for good reason, of course. And there it is, for good reason. But what were we wanting? And you can see how easy it is to manipulate us, and how even those in the whatever they are, truth movement, patriot movement, conservative Republicans, libertarians, you name it, the country was just expressing outrage that the government allowed, don't you know, this woman to actually leave her own private residence. That should not be allowed. Isn't that astonishing?